Hello everyone, this is Arisaig Winterthorn, Jedi Knight of the Conclave. You may know me as well as Everett Ratcliffe in various communities. Today I am here to deliver a lesson through the Conclave that I have entitled The Trial of the Gathering, Part 1, Into the Cave. This one I've done quite a bit of research into. It is based off of the Clone Wars TV series. So this lesson derives off an arc in the Clone Wars television show, specifically Season 5, Episodes 6 through 9. Each one of these parts goes into a single episode, so you can watch Episode 6 before you watch this, and then watch this. I'm going to do my best just to pull the lessons directly from it and just present them, so you don't need to watch them. However, they are very good episodes and with a ton that we can learn from. So I highly recommend that you watch them, just because God knows I've watched them countless times. So in this series, if you haven't watched them at this point, is a group of younglings, 6 younglings, headed by Padawan Ahsoka Tano, personal fan favorite of myself. They go on what is called the Gathering. It is a sort of a coming of age ceremony/trial for the younglings. To emphasize how important the Gathering is, the episode actually starts out with the announcer for the episode saying, beginning with, "The trials are hard and all must be passed, but none is more important than the Gathering. It is there that a Jedi's path will truly begin." So this tells us a couple of things. One, that they've already completed some trials. They can't get to the hardest trial without first having undergone lesser trials. This shows that they've already gone through a lot and may already be excellent Jedi in their own right. But this is where they come to know who they truly are, where their weaknesses are, where their strengths are, and what type of Jedi they actually are. As a result, we know this says that nobody, no matter how far you've come, is above trials and training. This also tells us that they have in turn achieved the tribulations and the knowledge that comes from succeeding through a trial. We only go through difficult times because we are capable of going through it. The Force will not throw something that's more than we can handle our way. It may seem like it's more than we can handle, and it may even break us, but it's not more than we can handle. It's never more than we can handle. So, and when you get through it, you succeeded, and you get this tribulation where you realize there's a meaning to it. There's a reason why you had to go through it, and you're better for it. And then finally, this also says that they have, despite having completed trials, some of them quite difficult, they have not even truly begun their Jedi path. So this arc is about self-discovery and actualization. One may have learned much about themselves and their path before this point, but the Gathering is designed to have one confront themselves and in turn become better Jedi for it. It's very important to remember that this isn't a stab at anybody. This is, like, I know myself, several times throughout my past I've been like, this is where I truly begin, only to be knocked down again, and the Force is saying, hey, you're not quite there yet. You still have more trials to undergo. And if I keep undergoing them, and they keep knocking me back down, keep getting back up, because the Force never throws more at me than I can handle. And as a result, I've become better for it. So, they get aboard their ship, and they travel to the planet of Ilum, which is described directly by Ahsoka as, no place is more sacred to the Jedi. So, for this part, we're going to do an exercise. Obviously, I can't take you to Ilum. It either A, does not exist, B, is just outside my traveling range. I do not have a car, much less a spacecraft. So instead we're going to do a quick exercise. So for this exercise, we can do this whenever you'd like throughout the next week or whenever you're watching this. Really, I'm not gonna show up and force you to do this. We're going to find a sacred place. This can be just simply a quiet place, just away from the hustle and bustle of other people, the hustle and bustle of noise. I recommend having no electronics on in that room, no lights. It doesn't have to be dark, but no like LEDs. Just quiet to try to eliminate the buzz of the modern world. This is going to be a place that you complete your gathering, per se. Over the next, like, whenever you need a quiet time, come back to this place, clean it. It's very important to keep your sacred place clean. And meditate in that area so that you become comfortable in that area. If you already have a place like this, people that have been along longer may already have like a meditation room or a spot that they like to go near a pond or in the park or in like a national forest or whatever. Go there and just clean it. This is just the important part. Clean it. It's very important to make your bed before you go along with your day. So this is now your personal temple. This is your sacred place. And you must ensure that it is worthy of such a title and that you are worthy of it. And that's it. Simple as it comes. You're just finding a place. So now, if the story continues, before the younglings can even enter the cave, where they're going to partake in their gathering, they're confronted with a large wall of ice. They are then told, because they believe it to be a dead end and that they've made a wrong turn somewhere, Ahsoka says, "Outstretch your hands and focus the Force. Together and only together may we enter." Now, this is a very interesting quote, because I've watched this arc several times. It's my favorite, and I've nitpicked this. What this tells us, one must be open and willing in order to undergo the trial of the gathering. One does not accidentally or unwillingly undergo it, or they'll just straight up disregard or discount what they find. You have to choose to undergo this. It doesn't happen accidentally, and I can't force you to undergo it. You have to choose. That's your choice if you decide not to. Maybe you're not ready for it. But it's designed to be difficult. So, you must be willing, you must outstretch your hand, which is a physical gesture to show like I'm out trying to actively enter. One must recognize their Force as their ally in order to accept the trial. So it says, outstretch your hand, focus the Force, which means they have to recognize that they can't do this. Like, outstretching your hand does nothing. You also have to remember your ally, the Force, is with you, and that it's the reason why you're going to be able to open up that door. Then it says, but then it goes, together and only together may we enter. Now, in this, like the immediate context, you would rightfully assume that she's talking about the group. Only together as a group can we enter. But when we get in, Yoda's already there. He's entered somehow by himself. And I don't believe, so I believe that when she's saying together and only together may we enter, she's not talking about with other people. In fact, throughout their trial, each one of these younglings is separated from each other. These obstacles are meant to be undertaken by themselves, but together with the Force. The Force is with them throughout the entire time and is testing them every step of the way. So when she says together, she's actually talking about together with the Force. They have to fully embrace the fact that the Force is with them. So once inside, Master Yoda is there, as I said, the paragon of the Jedi. And he asks the younglings a very simple question, but it has a couple interesting contexts, a little bit of trickery. He says, protect others how does a Jedi? So he immediately pulls out his lightsaber and he's floating it around in front of them. So this is designed, as I see it, to mislead us to believe that he is talking about a lightsaber. And that makes sense. What else would he be talking about? How does a Jedi protect others? And then he immediately shows his lightsaber. So then he says, "How do we protect others?" Pulls out his lightsaber, shows it off, and says, "You will be constructing your own lightsabers." But is that the answer to the question he just posed? I wouldn't think so. I would argue that it's not, and that this is another one of his famous "from a certain point of view" throw-outs. The most dangerous thing that could prevent the Jedi from performing their duties and protecting others is lack of self-knowledge. It is when one is confronted by their greatest fear and personal weaknesses that one will fall short of their own calling. So when Yoda asks, how do we protect others, the answer is by knowing oneself and the Force through that. The worst thing that could happen for a Jedi is the opportunity to protect others, but to be confronted by something so terrifying, even if it's just personally terrifying, or they have a personal weakness against something, and they can't. The lightsaber does nothing. I have one. This ain't gonna do anything. If somebody falls in the street, I'm not gonna pull this out and defend them from a car. I'm going to try to get the cars to stop, or try to pull them out of the way, push them out of the way, something. This tube of metal does nothing. Shines nice. That's it. So he is just trying to get the younglings interested in what's about to happen. But the question he poses and then how he follows it up throws them off, and they believe that they're going to simply make their lightsabers, when they are actually going to learn about themselves in greater detail. So going back, he then tells them that they'll be constructing their own lightsaber. But first they must harvest their crystal. He then gives the quote, "The heart of the lightsaber, the crystal is, focuses the Force through the Jedi it does. Trust yourself, trust each other, and succeed you will." Again, he's not talking about the others in the group. They all become separated. None of them find their crystal or get their crystal with another person present. He's talking about the Force. Trust yourself, trust each other. The Force has to trust you, you have to trust the Force, and you will succeed. So the question is then posed, well, how do we know which crystal to pick? And Ahsoka replies, only you will know which one is yours. So it's very much the wand chooses the wizard, Harry. But instead the whole, the hair flying back and the paper swirling around the room, it's a simple, I know that this is mine. It's a gut feeling. You just know, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's mine, obviously. So what I want you to do is, throughout your meditations, when you're going, I have an exercise coming up at the end of this, where you're going to go through and you're going to, so while you're meditating, you're going to focus on your fears. You have to know what your actual fears are. It's very easy to make up fears, like, oh, I have a fear of the dark. I used to, but then I realized it's just a fear of the unknown. I don't like not knowing. And darkness is quickly dispelled with light, and that's as simple as that. So you have to actually learn what the actual fear is. One of the characters in the show, he has this weird fear of monsters. Like the rest of them, they have interesting fears and stresses and personal weaknesses. He's afraid of monsters. And he's presented with this visage of a monster, and his crystal is inside the monster's mouth. And when he gets the crystal, he has to just grab it, and then he notices that there was nothing to be afraid of. There was no monster, it was just icicles and weird smoke, and that was it. So what was his actual fear? I'm probably just not being strong enough to face a monster. Not being strong enough to face something so dark and evil. But once he faced it, he realized maybe I should be looking through these things more. But there's a bit of a tangent there. So the remainder of the episode is pretty straightforward. They each go forward, they each find their crystal. However, the Force is specifically testing each one of them, and it puts them through a trial before they can get the crystal. This being a kid's show, and it is a kid's show, as much as there's some great lessons and people of all ages could watch it and should watch it, it's fantastic. The characters' flaws are very obvious. There's not really a lot of lead up to it. One's impatient, one's very selfish, one lacks self-confidence, one doesn't trust the Force, one's just afraid of being alone. But it's very obvious because they're able to quickly address it and be like, oh no, I have to get my crystal, but I have to wait for the lake to freeze over, or else I will freeze. So he sits down and meditates, and he pulls his hair or whatever, blah, 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 blah. But eventually he just calms down and he just says, okay, cool. So these fears and stuff like that are very quickly overcome, and that's very typical. It is a children's show after all. In Avatar: The Last Airbender, he masters chakras in a long afternoon drinking banana and onion juice. That's not how it works. But it's condensed for children, and it's condensed for our viewing pleasure, so we can figure out how we can go through it. So, exercise. Remember your sacred place? You're going to go back there whenever you can. I'm thinking at least 15 minutes a day. 15 minutes a day is an hour and a half a week. You got to think about it like that. And I want you to meditate on things that stress you out throughout your day. So it's best not to do it first thing in the morning because your day hasn't happened yet. You've been asleep. Go through your day. And then when you have a moment at the end of your day, go to your sacred place. Meditate on what happened that day. What's still eating you up about that day? What happened? Did somebody say something? Did somebody yell at you? What is stressing you out from that day still? What has clung to you as you've gone home and you've tried to unwind, and yet it's still there. It's still in your, like, the gut of your stomach, and it's like eating you up ever so slightly. You need to address those and think, well, why is this still there? Why is this still eating me up inside? And think through it. Just rationalize it. Just pick it apart slowly but surely. 15 minutes a day doesn't take very long. And this will, like, you do this every day, and this will help you do it quicker in your day-to-day. If something happens now on the street, somebody yells at me, sometimes I'm just so caught off by how quickly I'm just start picking it apart mentally and being like, okay, well, I felt anger. Why did I feel anger? That I don't end up reacting in real life because I'm still trying to be like, should I be angry about this? I don't think so. I'm still able to converse, I'm still able to go through things, but I'm not giving out an emotional response because I haven't yet justified to myself, justified to myself that it's worth my energy. So 50 minutes a day, sit down, think about what stressed you out through the day. Okay, so that's just your exercise. Just focus on those things. So no one can help you through working through these stresses. Nobody can see your crystal like you can. They can't feel it. They can't see it. They can't hear it. When you watch the episode, when two of the younglings are looking in the exact same place, one sees their crystal, the other can't see anything. It's too dark over there. Because they can't help, and if they could see it, they would be able to help. They're Jedi, of course they would help. It's their friends. They're like, this is how we are. For this, nobody can help you. They're going to try to piece it apart in their own way. And if your fear doesn't make sense to them, they're not going to tackle it the way, because for you it is very real. For myself, I have this very weird fear, and it's a very irrational fear of large human statues. I don't know why. I don't think I could ever go near the Statue of Liberty, for example. There's just something about it. I don't like statues. Doesn't make sense. So I just know to avoid it. Like, there's right outside the window right now, there's a statue in the garden. And it's looking at me, and it's just, don't like it. It's just, I don't know, weeping angels or something like that. It doesn't make sense to anyone else, and nobody else can understand what I'm going through when I'm going through that. So nobody else can help me. I have to figure this out myself. So one of the big things, and there's this interaction from what I said before, when they're looking up in the same place, and one sees the crystal, but the other can't. It's way high up, and they said, well, maybe you should climb up there and get it. And this interaction goes down where she says, what if I get up there and there's nothing? And the other says, well, that's a risk you're going to have to take. In the end, there's no guaranteed payoff. This whole Jedi thing, tackling these fears, any type of training, there is no guaranteed payoff. You can get to the end and be, oh, well, that was useless. That made no sense. I did it, and now I have nothing to show for it. You can get to the end, you can get something out of it, but still not be enlightened. You will at most understand yourself just a little bit more at the end. But that's really all I can even remotely promise. You could do this meditation every single day and get nowhere if you're not tackling it right, if you don't go into it with the right mindset, if you're just making excuses. Excuses are a big one. It's very easy to make excuses. It's very hard to actually put nose to grindstone and do what needs to be done. In the end, it's about the journey and not the destination. And if you take the risk head on, the payoff is often worth it, even if there is no payoff. Don't know if that makes sense, but I think it sounds smart. So a lot of the trials that younglings undergo are very specific and very targeted to their weakness. As I said, patience, selflessness, bravery, trust, confidence, and hopefulness. They go in confident. They think that they are going to get through this. They come to a very, very low place when they realize my weaknesses, my specific weakness, my fear is holding me back. I cannot progress as a Jedi. I can't get my crystal because I haven't addressed this problem yet. And now it seems like a minor problem before, but now it's a serious one, and I can't progress. But eventually they come to a moment where they steel themselves, they make themselves ready, and they just do it. They're just like, well, I just got to grind through it and get through this. And they do. And they often wonder what they were really worried about in the first place. Near the end of the episode, there is one, and this is very important. There's one person who came out first, but they had rushed and they didn't grab their crystal. They were like, that looks like a crystal. Grab it, leave, and they find out that it wasn't actually their crystal. It was just an ice crystal, and it melts. So he goes back in, and he's rushing around, and he's rushing and rushing and rushing, and he's realizing he's going in circles. He sees one of his friends is in need of help, and he doesn't stop to help her. He leaves and then comes back almost immediately because he realizes it's the right thing to do, but he's in a rush, and that's the important thing. The importance of this interaction during this process, it is important to do these meditations with you and your most powerful ally, the Force. But during this progress, it's very good and healthy for you to get out and to interact with others. So, as I said, nobody else can help you do this. But without interaction from others, if you just lock yourself in a closet, you're not going to have yourself tested. You're not going to have your path, your training, none of it's going to get tested. So for this character, Petro, he's realized that his flaws are holding him back. He came in, he was very cocky. He's like, I'm going to go get my crystal first. He thought he did, failed, goes back in, realizes running in circles, and realizes he's now the last one to get his crystal. And he runs off without helping his friend, and then realizes, what's the point of all this? He gets a shiny rock at the end. But if he gets that shiny rock, he's still let his friends down. He doesn't care. He realizes it shouldn't be about him getting a crystal. It should be about him being a Jedi. And he realizes that his personal flaw, selfishness, is holding him back on a very fundamental level. He goes back, helps her, and in turn finds his crystal behind her. So now that you tackled your fears, you should now have your crystal. This is just a metaphorical crystal. We're going to go into this later in another episode of this series. This was supposed to be just a 10-minute thing. I didn't realize just how much I could pull from this, how much I could extrapolate from this, and I'm not even done yet. So, because this is the Jedi Conclave YouTube, I'm going to pull some Jedi Conclave lessons, specifically the pitfalls. Now, in the Jedi Conclave, we have what are called the pitfalls of the Jedi. We have the pillars, the habits, and the pitfalls. The pitfalls are things that Jedi have to worry about. Not like be afraid of, but they should be aware that these things could happen to them without them really noticing. I see it happen to almost every Jedi. I know myself, I've gone through all 5 several times throughout my Jedi path. And they're human, but we have to be aware of them so we can tackle them properly. So the first one is over-attachment. So over-attachment, of course, is like, oh, a Jedi should be wary of attachments. And they say this as a relationship thing, but it really isn't. This is about over-attachment when it begins to affect how you do your job as a Jedi. So, in this story, one can be overly attached to an ideal outcome, the end goal. So they Petro rushes in. He has an idea. He's attached overly so to the idea that he's going to be the first to get his crystal and get out of there. And as a result, he becomes selfish and he becomes hasty, which is another one of the pitfalls of the Conclave. And we'll go into that later. So he's very attached to what he wants, what his ideal outcome is going to be. And it is an egotistical attempt to achieve one's desired conclusion, and it will result in one coming out of the cave with a crystal, but it will not be their crystal. You need to make sure that you're doing it right and not be focused on the outcome. You can do this over and over and over again and not achieve the crystal. I can't promise that, nor should you promise that to yourself, because it will cloud your mind. Another one of our pitfalls. It'll make you act hastily. Another one of the pitfalls. If you don't achieve it, you'll go into denial. Yet another one of the pitfalls. It's pretty. It all goes in circles. So let's go into the next pitfall, which is denial. A potential for just wanting to complete something may create a situation ripe for creating excuses instead of results. If one doesn't achieve the goal that they want or a goal they know is achievable, they will go into denial and make excuses as to why they can't get their crystal. It's very easy to make excuses, as I've already said. And denial is often born out of denial is often a symptom of excuses. You start making excuses, and it becomes easier because you're like, my back hurts. Like, unless you have literally a medical excuse for that, I'm perfectly healthy, and once in a while my back aches, but I still will train because my back hurts, yeah, but that's because I am training, not as an excuse to get out of it. Um, then we go into the next pitfall, which is haste. Uh, there is no rushing this process. There's no end goal for being a Jedi. There's no pot of gold at the end. There is no we're going to this place. Doesn't exist. So rushing doesn't make sense. You rush and you miss the flowers, you miss the pebbles, you miss the little babbling brooks along the way because you're looking at the horizon being like, I need to get there. But there is no there. It keeps extending, it keeps going. So there's no point in rushing it. This means so there's no point in rushing the process. Do or do not, there is no try. This means that you will either, in the end, do it or you will not do it. If you rush, you will not do it properly, and overall, you will not end up doing it. So simply do it and do not rush. The next one, clouded mind. The goal of these meditations is to tackle fear, and fear can cloud the mind. Sometimes it can be all-encompassing, irrational, and lead one to avoid it entirely, and in turn, egotistically say that they've conquered it, when all they've done is just brush it under a rug. We see this very late in the Clone Wars series, where Yoda goes on this meditative journey, and he says, "Ooh, master my darkness I have, blah, 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 blah." And then when he's actually confronted with his darkness, he runs in fear, and he doesn't know what to do. He's terrified. He doesn't recognize what's before him when it's himself. And you would think 800-something years, 860-something years of being a Jedi, you would think he would have. And maybe at one point he had, but he stagnated, which is yet another pitfall, which we'll go into next. He stagnated and allowed a new darkness to form, one that he hadn't conquered, one that may be even more powerful, because as we grow more powerful, our internal darkness can also grow in power, because it's a constant battle. A lot of people talk about balancing light and darkness, and I have to do I can do dark things to balance my light thing. That doesn't make sense. As Jedi, we do light things to balance the darkness that is our natural human self. Example, this is a very innocent one. I love chocolate. Chocolate's amazing. Isn't it great? However, my waist loves it more, and it doesn't like letting go of it. And I get all bloated and fat and blah, 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 blah. I can make excuses, or I can tackle it with working out. It's not fun, and if I allow it to stagnate, if I allow myself to make excuses, go into denial, I could just end up getting big and bloated, full of chocolate, and not being able to do my duties as a Jedi properly. Next one, stagnation. Throughout the episode, they keep talking about the door freezing over. So when there's the second ice door that they melt at melt when they're going into the caves, and it starts freezing. And it's like, oh, if you don't get out fast enough, the door will freeze over and you'll be stuck in there overnight, which the days last like 2 weeks or something like that. The nights last 2-something weeks before the sun will rise again. It can be free. But so it's like they need to get out before the end of the day. But it turns out that at the end, that this is yet again Yoda being Yoda from a certain point of view. Since ice is just water, just made solid, Ahsoka and Yoda have lightsabers, they can cut through it, and in the end, one of the younglings just runs and smashes through it. It's an illusion, and the whole illusion is to push the younglings forward with an artificial deadline. In short, is to decrease stagnation. They could spend days in those caves, but because they're stressed, because there's like, oh, there's a deadline, I need to get out, I need to do this, I need to go in, find my crystal, get out, run. It can serve to cloud the mind, and I think that's sort of part of the trial is to confuse, but at the same time is to push them to keep going forward. Even though there is no deadline, no end goal, and nothing stopping you, the point is to go forward. I've seen a lot of time where Jedi will just stop training and they just coast, or worse yet, stop. Stagnation is the perfect word for this because it is just going stagnant. So this artificial clock that they put in there is to decrease, is to instill in the student's mind that we just need to keep moving forward. I see something, I stumble, I fall, I pick myself back up, and I keep going because there's a timer, even though there is no timer. So that is part 1 into the cave of the Trial of the Gathering little mini-series I'm doing. I still have pages of this to go, and I'm going to be reading this off another time, but I just want to make sure I get this out in time. We're already almost 40 minutes in because I never do anything in half measures. So I would love to have some conversation on the matter. I want to see any discussion. If you want to know more, if you want to understand what I'm talking about in even greater depth, season 5, episode 6, okay, of the Clone Wars. It's on. It's out there. You can find it. I guarantee it. Well worth the watch. Every single minute. I've watched that arc over so many times because there's so many lessons in it. Like 8 pages, 4,000 something words, and I'm not even done yet. Yeah, like there's some good stuff in there. So that's part 1. Next week I should have part 2 out here on the Jedi Conclave YouTube. So subscribe, like, comment, all that lovely things. And just be aware that next Sunday there should be part 2 of this. So again, I am Arisaig Winterthorn, Knight of the Conclave, and may the Force continue to guide you.